Good afternoon. I call the St. Lucie Transportation Planning Organization reschedule regular meeting on April 18, 2013 at 2 p.m. Please call the roll. Let's do the
Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
City of Port St. Lucie Councilwoman Berger.
Here, ma'am.
City of Port St. Lucie Councilman Ron Bowen.
Present.
Community Transit Representative Drummond.
Present. Scary.
St. Lucie County Commissioner Zadowski.
Here.
St. Lucie School Board Representative Hensley.
Present.
St. Lucie County Commissioner Lewis.
Here.
City of Port St. Lucie Councilwoman Martin.
Here, ma'am.
St. Lucie County Commissioner Mowry.
Here.
St. Lucie TPO Vice Chair Hutchinson. And St. Lucie TPO Chair Fiala.
Here, ma'am.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Yeah, do you know why it's echoing like this?
Hold on. Bear with me. Is there anything we can do about that feedback? Okay. Coming on.
Okay. Moving along, item 4, approval agenda. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 5, approval of minutes. I need a motion to approve the minutes of February 6, 2013, regular meeting.
So moved. Approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 6, comments from the public. Any comments? See none. Moving along. Item 7, comments from the advisory committee members. Anyone wish to speak at this time? See none. We're at the
Thank
consent
you.
agenda. Item 8A, appointment to the St. Lucie TPO Citizen Advisory Committee. I guess we're going to either recommend. You're recommending.
Appoint or not, if you'll appoint or not appoint the
Appoint.
recommendations for the disabled representative to the TPO Citizens Advisory Committee and the resident bicycling representative to the St. Lucie TPO Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
Motion to approve appointment.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Action items. 9A, Community Transportation Coordinator redesignation.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. I apologize for the delay in getting started here, but as we go forward, the TPO board recommends every 5 years the designation of a community transportation coordinator. And to present this item is Marcia Ladu, the TPO's transit program manager. Marcia?
Thank you, Peter. Madam Chair, members of the board. The State Transportation Disadvantage Program provides public transportation to those who cannot obtain it on their own. At the local level, a community transportation coordinator oversees the program. In St. Lucie, the community transportation coordinator is the Board of County Commissioners. The Community Services Department provides the daily functions, and the public transportation itself is provided by Community Transit. As Peter said, every 5 years a CTC has to be redesignated or designated, and this is the responsibility of the TPO board. The current contract with the Board of County Commissioners expires June 30th, 2013, and the county has expressed a desire to continue in its role as the Community Transportation Coordinator. Staff recommends the redesignation of the Board of County Commissioners. Since 1990, the county and Community Transit have provided safe, affordable, quality public transportation. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? See none. What is the motion?
Move acceptance of Resolution 13-01.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. 9B, St. Lucie Advanced Transportation Management System.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. In cooperation with the local government and TPO staffs, the Florida Department of Transportation District 4 has prepared the St. Lucie Advanced Transportation Management System Master Plan. Now, the purpose of this plan is to provide recommendations with regards to improving the existing traffic control system throughout St. Lucie County. The ATMS concept proposes to unify the existing 4 individual traffic control systems to increase transportation system efficiency, also to enhance mobility and improve safety throughout the area. District 4 will provide a presentation on the proposed ATMS concept and master plan and will request approval from the board on the ATMS concept itself and also for Phase 1 of the master plan. And here on behalf of the Florida Department of Transportation is Melissa Ackert, who is the District 4 Traffic Operations Engineer. Melissa?
Hi, Peter. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me today. Just a clarification, I'm not the District Traffic Operations Engineer. I report to him. That would be Mark Plass. Maybe one day. But my official title is the Arterial Management Program Manager in District 4. So I deal a lot with the local agencies within our district on traffic operations and traffic operations related projects. And the projects that we've been working with in the St. Lucie County area has been primarily this master plan, which just recently completed. So I'm going to present to you on that plan, as Peter noted, and the next step that we hope to take. So start at the big picture. What is transportation system management operation? This is a large program that incorporates both freeway management and arterial management. It's a program based on measuring performance and actively managing the multimodal transportation network to deliver positive safety and mobility outcomes. The thing that I like the most, the easiest way to describe it is it's a program that is to use the existing infrastructure and squeeze any extra capacity we can to get out of it, because we can't keep building our way out of congestion through adding more lanes. And so we're trying to maximize the existing systems that we have. District 4 already has a pretty advanced freeway management program throughout all of the counties through the I-95 ITS program, which keeps expanding with the express lanes that are now going up to Palm Beach County pretty soon. On the arterial side, we haven't been as involved, and so this is one thing that we've been focusing on as a district is how can we bring a lot of that expertise and that paradigm that we have on the freeways to the arterial system and start actively operating them just like we do the freeways. Oops. Sorry, Peter. Wrong button. Thank you. So what is active arterial management? It varies, and it's not always going to be the same everywhere because the needs are different everywhere. It could, on one end of the spectrum, it could be just basic signal maintenance and coordinated signals, and they're timed on a regular schedule, which is pretty common throughout the state and has been the practice for many years now. On the other end of the spectrum, the more progressive and more advanced systems in the heavy urban areas are transitioning to these more advanced ATMS systems where there's faster detection and response time to equipment malfunction, so there's increased maintenance, real-time performance monitoring, so they're actively watching the travel times in real time and making timing adjustments based on those changing demands throughout the day. Signal retiming to meet real-time demands, that's basically what I just described. In incident and special event management, we do this on the interstates. We have a Road Ranger program, or if we see a disabled vehicle or a crash, we'll send out a Road Ranger. Not to say this is what we would do on the arterials, but that's just one end of the spectrum.
Madam Chair, Mr. Buckle, before you go on to the next segment, this might be a question to ask at this time. We had entertained the idea of having the fire district and first responder system in place. Would this be an area in which we could coordinate an effort simply from the signal maintenance side of things, coordinating signals, having a system where police and fire were responding to a call, having an automated system in which they could control the signals? Is that something that we could integrate or have a conversation about? in this area?
I think the system you're describing, it's called emergency preemption, and that is an ITS device that can be installed at intersections, and it's usually a receiver. It's like shaped like a bell, and the emergency vehicles equipped with the devices, typically it's like a fire truck or an ambulance will have the transceiver, so it'll send the signal to that device at the intersection. And that device will override the signal, and depending on the direction that the ambulance is going, will turn the red to a green. And so this happens, as the vehicle progresses to the location. I can't say off the top of my head if this is something that's already deployed in St. Lucie County, but it would be.
It is not. We've been discussing it, and Mr. Buckwell, we had.
Madam Chair, the answer, the simple answer is yes. That can be incorporated into this system that is being proposed by the.
So I know that the fire
board.
district is very interested in trying to make that happen for response time reduction.
Especially at 3 stations which are located at major. I'm sorry, especially at 3 stations which are located at major intersections.
There's 3 fire stations, or?
3 stations, fire stations. One is, Prima Vista and Roseau, if I'm not mistaken. Then there's one on Port St. Lucie Boulevard. The stations are right there, and they're right at major intersections. So there is a lot of need for that.
Yes, and Madam Chair and members of the board, the theme of throughout this that you'll see is this all hinges on unifying the system to a certain extent. So where all the system is connected and coordinated together facilitates those types of technology, such as the traffic signal preemption technology. But there's some challenges to unifying the system among all the jurisdictions, and that's what Melissa's going to get to next.
Yeah. So getting closer down to the discussion points of this presentation is, what is an ATMS? It's an Advanced Transportation Management System. It's the infrastructure software needed to actively manage the network. And so the picture shows that it's data collection. There's that comes from the data collection devices you have out in the field. There's an analysis and operations phase, and then there's the traveler information dissemination component, which would also require some equipment, depending on how you want this information shared with the local users. What's not shown is probably the most expensive part of all of this, and that's the communications network, and that's usually underground. Nowadays it's fiber optic based. Some areas are going wireless. We typically like to do fiber optic in District 4 because it's a little bit more robust. But moving on to the next slide, some current challenges that we have in this area. In trying to research, the master plan, we had to have a better understanding of where you guys had envisioned going in the future, and so we reviewed the 2035 LRTP, and so this is a snapshot from it. And the thing that we pulled out that really, I think, gave us the support we needed, that an ATMS is definitely something we want to invest in the county, is all these ideas listed here. Bus rapid transit, signal priorities mentioned. These types of things require an advanced signal system that has to be integrated. And if US 1 is the corridor that you would like this to run off of, that one corridor runs through 3 signal maintaining agencies, 2 of which are on the same signal system platform, and 1 is on a different platform. So coordination is going to be needed, and then also you have varying levels of technology along that corridor, which is why a master plan was needed to figure out these technical details of how we're going to help you accomplish this longer term goal. So current trends and future projections, issues and challenges that were in the plan. Common in South Florida, there's capacity issues projected almost everywhere in South Florida. There's infrastructure issues and challenges. There's gaps in technology. There's gaps in reliability, and there's also gaps in compatibility with the equipment, like I mentioned earlier. Funding and agency resources is another factor that everyone struggles with throughout District 4. We have different agencies who have different expertise, and the DOT, we're very good at producing projects and construction projects, and then our local agencies, they're really good at operating the arterials, and understanding these roles better and where the resources are so we can pool our resources is something that we're trying to do through this TSM&O program. But these are challenges that we still need to overcome. And then there's interagency coordination. It's always difficult to coordinate, between different agencies, as you guys probably know, working with different agencies. There's always challenges, but these things can be overcome. So the master plan, it described 5 phases. We discussed this with the Technical Advisory Committee, and they had recommended that we try to start implementing Phase 1, which is along US 1 and segments of State Road 70 and Edwards Road. It would provide for interconnection to 56 signals within this area. And the interconnect would be a fiber optic based network, and it would provide traffic monitoring cameras so that traffic operations staff within the agencies can monitor remotely and respond to the causes of congestions from the TMCs, or the traffic management centers that they have. It would also provide for data collection devices so that they don't have to put out road tubes, or they have to do their travel time studies with a floating car technique. That would be eliminated through a project like this, because everything would be done in real time using technology. The costs of the phases are described here. The traffic operations centers would need some upgrades to them, depending on how that was to be determined. There are, I think, currently technically 3 operations, or 4 if you include the Treasure Coast Operations Center, which DOT operates in this area. So we would have to discuss how to best approach this so we can get the most bang for our buck. And then the phases are listed here. Phase 1 is approximately $3.3 million, and that's the phase that we're trying to move forward in the DOT work program. As a part of the master plan, there was a concept of operations developed. With any ITS project, you have to have an operations plan or a concept of operations that talks about roles, responsibilities, objectives, performance targets, so that when you start implementing the project, it's well understood on what you're trying to achieve with these infrastructure that you're installing, because it has a lot to do with how things will be placed. The things that we pulled out from that we wanted to share with you, under Federal Highway has a document called Collaborative Advantage, Realizing the Tangible Benefits of a Regional Transportation Collaboration. And the points they brought up was it's important to share expertise and joint learning. You got to be on the same page, have common procedures and protocols for this to work. So it goes back to making sure all the agencies are integrated. Sharing the wealth and sharing the resources. We can pool funds and get more done by just working together. And then also through that, you're building economies of scale by consolidating a lot of these services, like maintenance could be consolidated to maybe one agency versus all 3 having a maintaining aspect. The next steps, there's a lot of details that need to be worked out. We would need to further refine with the local traffic agencies, those roles, who is going to be doing what, who is an expert in what areas. And start working on design and construction project management, who's going to be playing a role in that, and then who's going to be playing a role in the operations and maintenance side. Consider collaborating and streamlining strategies for local major agencies. That goes back to the economies of scale discussion point that came from Federal Highway. And then really my next step would be, upon your approval, would be to start looking for the funding for these projects. That actually would be step 1. The details of how it would be implemented is something that would be worked out simultaneously of getting that funding. But DOT has and will continue supporting our local agencies through providing funding for these projects. But then the next step, the operations and maintenance, is where we need to get some of those details hashed out. And that's what I will do if you guys approve of this project concept. And that is it. If you guys have any questions.
Madam Chair, when you talk about the funding, is DOT planning on setting up separate funding where it doesn't touch into any of our other different pots of monies that we draw from for our different programs?
From what I've done in other counties, it's always been separate. We've never had it. And it's for better or worse, we never were on the Broward County or Palm Beach County. We never were a priority on any other priorities list. And these projects were always funded with leftovers, essentially. And so I don't see this being any different in St. Lucie County. We would request the funding from the district secretary, and if he approved, it would come from a different source. It wouldn't impact your allocations as they are today.
Okay. Because that would be my one concern, that I'm not robbing Peter to pay Paul when we've got so many needs. And when you say leftover monies, I've yet to see one that we have leftover monies with.
What I mean by that, is we often estimate it, and since 2008, the construction costs and estimates have always been too high, and we end up having, some money left over. And the work program at the end of the year has a balance, and they scramble to fund projects, and that's how a lot of our operations projects get funded, and it's a good thing, because if we technology is something that's hard to predict, and it's hard to say, 5 years from now we want to invest in fill in the blank, because it's constantly changing. And so this is really, I think, a good way to do it, because technology in the next 2 years is easier to predict, and that's the kind of funding projects that they're looking to fund with that extra money, is something that is quick and is going to be beneficial today. And so that's this kind of project.
Okay. And Madam Chair, I have just one more question. When you're talking about the timing, I've noticed you had 4, possibly 5 phases listed on one of your back slides.
Yes.
What is the timing of those phases? I mean, is it, when you're talking the 2035, are you talking all the way out to 2035, or the 2 years that you just mentioned? Or
Those projects are usually about 2 to 3 years long, more closer to 2 years. And so if we requested all 5 phases, it could be done in 10 years. But we're only going to try for phase 1 right now and work out a lot of the details through that project, and then move to phase 2 as appropriate and as you guys support that.
Thank you.
Madam Chair. So is this prior to speaking with the Port St. Lucie, Fort Pierce, and the county and getting all their input? Is this plan come before that process, or has that already been done? Because I'm a little confused as to how that has worked or not worked.
Well, the FDOT had hired FR Element, and they coordinated with the City of Port St. Lucie, Fort Pierce, and St. Lucie County traffic divisions, and gained their input on the types of systems that they would like to see and inventory. And you'll see that actually a lot of the infrastructure is not going into the City of Port St. Lucie, because City of Port St. Lucie has an advanced system already. Right. And so the focus is really to bring up the other areas of the county to that same level of advancement. And not to say that the other agencies didn't have the foresight, it's just funding got really tough, for the last 5 years. And they've come to us on several occasions, asking, if we could help them. And traditionally in the past, we used to provide this type of upgrade with the RRR projects, and policies had to change because of the recession, and so now this new direction of master plans and then funding the projects is what we're being told by Tallahassee, and so that's really the intent of this.
Okay. Madam Chair, I just want to reiterate the conversation in the previous slide here, in that I absolutely believe that we need to incorporate the fire district in this conversation, and even from a funding standpoint, they may be able to get grants to assist in this process. And as you said, parts of the county are more advanced than others, but that might be the area in which we are able to secure simple changes that would enhance fire safety. With over 41,000 run calls last year, we're going to see incursions, vehicle incursions, and crashes and things of that nature if these calls continue to go up without some kind of strategy. So I would ask support to bring the fire district into that. They have done a lot of work on this already.
Certainly, we can include that in the RFP discussions.
Madam Chair, I agree with Commissioner Zadowski that the fire district should absolutely be included in this discussion without question. One thing that's kind of bothering me is that, and we have members of the council. Michelle's been on longer than I have, but I just don't remember this coming to council by our staff. So that's one of the concerns that I have. This is the first time I've heard of it, and so I don't know, Councilwoman Berger, if you've heard of it, but I would really like to hear from my staff about this.
No, ma'am. Madam Chair, I'm sorry. No, ma'am, I have not heard of it.
Okay. So then that concerns me that we have a councilwoman who's been on for such a long time now, and she's never heard of this either. So I'm a little concerned that hasn't been brought. At the city level, this has not been brought to us.
Madam Chair, first a comment with regard to that. My understanding of this issue is that it's a concept at this point. The specifics have not been discussed. It's a new project. It's just being brought forward. If we like the concept, I'm assuming as we move through the phases, it will be brought to us back for individual implementation points. I don't think when you're talking 2035, it isn't, as she said, technology advances so quickly. I don't think it's the kind of thing we can detail out at this point. So I'm comfortable with the concept, but I did have a question back at the costs and phases slide you had. Port St. Lucie was broken out. I imagine that's because it's larger and it's got a different level of technology, as you said. But Fort Pierce is not broken out. Is that a problem? I mean, they are a distinct city as well. They have distinct systems and technologies, and I'm wondering how we're going to handle one and not the other.
I think when the consultant put together the phasing implementation plan, it wasn't based on city boundaries. It was based on roadways. And phase 1 is to connect primarily US 1, and it does go into the City of Port St. Lucie. And the bulk of phase 1 is the fiber optic installation, which the City of Port St. Lucie has fiber optic already. So a lot of the work wouldn't be required in the city limits. The data collection devices having some sort of consistency, that technology has not been defined, and pending further discussions with the local agencies on how they would like to see the operations and maintenance of this, that technology definition would occur. Maybe to help explain this a little bit better, with the funding request, it's just a concept that we propose. It's one page primarily. We say, you know, we want to install an ATMS system. Components will include traffic monitoring cameras and data collection devices that cost this much, and operations and maintenance will be refined later or defined by the local agencies. If in concept it's approved, the next step would be to start writing the request for proposal and a technical requirements document, and those conversations are the detailed conversations where we talk about, you know, where are things going to go, what's that technology going to look like, and that happens over a course of 6 or so months, and then once that's completed, that's when the project gets advertised.
Well, I wasn't questioning anything in detail.
Okay,
I think my
sorry.
comments before that said I understood that part. I'm just concerned about the overall phasing and funding. When there's one entity that's, you know, specifically mentioned and another isn't, I guess as we go on we can handle that, but it just concerned me that why the difference occurred.
Madam Chair, members of the board, if I may build on that and hopefully answer the questions. The master plan has been under development for well over a year now. Each of your local staffs were included in the development of the plan. We met at least on a quarterly basis to discuss that. But this is such a huge paradigm shift type plan in terms of what DOT is proposing here is to help fund the coordination of almost all the signals in the entire area. Traditionally, you have 4 maintaining agencies, each of the 3 local jurisdictions in addition to DOT. You have 2 different technologies that are currently being utilized, as well as a multitude of different methods of how the signals are operated. What they're saying is, you know, we'd be supportive of connecting and unifying those signals so that they can communicate to one another, so they can adjust themselves, so people can move freely, not only along US 1, but Port St. Lucie Boulevard and even areas out west. However, there has to be some economies and some efficiencies that at some point have to be implemented. These include, at some point, you have to have a unified agency that's going to oversee all of this rather than the 4 separate agencies. You have to somehow figure that out. Of course, the challenge is, and this is why it hasn't come before you individually, is because each of your local staffs has expressed the challenges that go with that. For instance, what happens if you have one agency and a signal goes out up on Angle Road? Is that maintaining agency going to put the priority that it needs? If one of you call your city manager, your county administrator, and say, hey, we have an issue over here at this particular intersection, is it going to give the attention that it needs equally as what it gets right now? Those things can be figured out. So what was proposed is let's bring it in front of the TPO board, because this is the venue when all the jurisdictions are together, and see if there's any significant opposition to the concept itself, see if there's support for the concept. If there is, then we can move forward. And what they're throwing out as a carrot, as an incentive, if you will, is $3.5 million to fund the first phase 1, which is along US 1. Now, it is recognized the City of Port St. Lucie has made the most investment with regard to this type of technology. They've installed the most amount of fiber optic network. That's why the initial phases are to bring the other jurisdictions in line with the technology that is already existing with this, at the City of Port St. Lucie, and ultimately connecting them and upgrading their system. So that's the reason for the different and the distinctions, is we have to bring the other agencies on consistent with Port St. Lucie. So at the end of the day, though, what's planned is really a terrific thing that's already going on in Vision down south. But they want to bring it here to this county, be the first on the Treasure Coast to bring this type of system. But there's a number of things we need to get through. All they want from you at this point is that you approve of the concept and that you don't mind that they apply for $3.5 million of funding, of state funding, to implement perhaps the US 1 corridor project.
Perhaps I wasn't really clear. I appreciate the concept. I understand the concept. I am supporting the concept. I was just wondering about the overall layout of the phases and the costs as they were listed. I'm certainly, quite honestly, what you said was a wonderful explanation, so I let you go, but I didn't really need that.
I'm sorry.
I'm on board. I fully appreciate the fact that the district has something, and I understand the coordination aspect and all of that wonderful stuff. I'm just questioning why there was a difference in the phasing that seemed to be fairly glaring, but if it'll be handled smoothly, I'm sure it's fine.
And Madam Chair, I'd like to clarify that the master plan itself is over 500 pages long. For the interest of brevity and to summarize, that's why we did, break out. We can bring back as many details as the board chooses. So
well, no, it was just listing the 5 phases, and one of them was named and none other was named for the other jurisdiction. That's all I was questioning. It's not a massive roadblock in my mind. I think this is a very good concept.
Madam Chair, it probably would have been better to have a mile marker instead of city limit name on that. Maybe instead of saying Port St. Lucie, it would have been mile marker something else on US 1, because it was the same concept. It's just that it happens to have Port St. Lucie on it.
Well, the Phase 1 US 1 corridor that we've identified does go through this Fort Pierce, St. Lucie County, and it enters into the city Port St. Lucie limits. It does cross all 3 agencies, and that was one of the reasons it was selected, on top of the other reasons being the congestion problems that are being projected and the future goals that you guys had identified in your LRTPs.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, just a question as it relates to the existing systems that are in place. Looking at the map, it's not completely clear, but it seems like some of the areas that are not shown intersection-wise may not have the latest and greatest systems in place. I'm just wondering if there are going to be any potential conflicts with your new system and the existing system that may be in place, and how that's going to be addressed through this type of a plan.
That is actually one of the concerns that was brought up by the local agencies. The 2 agencies from St. Lucie County and Fort Pierce run the same signal system software. So the technology of the software is, I guess, I don't know how better to say it, but it just is independent of the communication system. So we can put in fiber optic and anything can be plugged into it. So from day one, you could...
That's the problem. Okay, I see. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Her light bulb just went off.
Okay. So one of the challenges, though, that we do see is that you will have 3 agencies who are retiming the signals along US 1, and that a plan for more of an integrated approach is something that we would like to work on with the local agencies, and how they see the whole US 1 corridor being operated and maintained.
That was Peter, for the record.
Madam Chair, members of the board, that light was correct. The City of Port St. Lucie uses a different type of software from the county and the City of Fort Pierce, and these software providers are competitors, so they don't necessarily talk with each other, nor do they want to talk to each other. So that's something that'll be figured out. That's a challenge throughout the country in terms of, at some point, have a single software system. So the funding will have to be allocated towards either changing the 2 other jurisdictions to 1 or the 1 to the 2. I mean, that's something that can be figured out. All right, now there's looking for, can we at least use I think what's proposed by this first phase is, let's use this as an example. Let's see if we can at least do this on US 1 and see how it works, and going from there, whether we can continue to demonstrate to DOT that we can all get along, that we can all figure this out, and that please, continue to apply money on our behalf.
Madam Chair. So the request today, Peter, is for approval of the concept itself, but also of Phase 1.
Correct. Which
is what you're looking for.
Corridor.
All right. And so, yes, so your light bulb that went off, Madam Martin, is correct. The concern with the City of Port St. Lucie would be around the fiber optics piece, because we have traditionally not shared that with any agency. From a Homeland Security purpose, I think most of us would want to make sure that we have that secured and have those conversations with your individual agencies before moving forward. If Phase 1 includes something outside the City of Port St. Lucie, I have no problem supporting the concept in Phase 1, because that seems to be up to, I would love to hear more discussion from the people representing that Phase 1 portion. But from the City of Port St. Lucie's perspective, my director of our Public Works and Engineering Department, I just had a chance to walk over so I can share with everybody. Yeah, she's thinking exactly what we were thinking in our heads, which is there's a reason why we don't connect, and that was by design.
Yep.
Right. Madam Chair, that's absolutely one of the challenges that we need to figure out. Is there a way that we can maintain the security, can be maintained?
Yeah, it would have
but
to be a
still,
separate run of fiber optics.
You know, and that's and how that has to be accounted for in the investment.
And just
So-
from the taxpayers and the ratepayers' perspective, I don't want it to sound as though we're trying to isolate, the monies that we've spent. From a long-term perspective, our utilities department, so our ratepayers and our citizens have gotten the benefit of having reduced fees for this because we've put all the information for utilities and the city on the fiber optics, basically corridor for our city, and that enables us to have to spend less money over the long term. But it's all our information there, so we can't realistically share light timing corridor areas because it's got our utilities information from, again, a homeland security standpoint, especially these days. That is not a risk that we're willing to take to make the lights change faster.
Correct. And Madam Chair, and Councilwoman Berger, you're absolutely correct that that's an issue that needs to be addressed and to be considered carefully. And also the investment that Port St. Lucie has made, the benefits resulting from this funding have to be realized. That investment is realized. Where it's equitable. There has to be an equitable benefit achieved across all the jurisdictions. So that can be, but I have faith, a glass half full. I think we can work through those issues. We have a number of years to work through them. It all starts here, though. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's a terrific concept that we should proceed forward to. But it's at your discretion.
Madam Chair, if Councilwoman Berger made a motion, I'll second it.
Was that a motion?
It's a motion for me.
Yeah.
You second? All in favor?
Question, did that include the fire district being part of that?
I wrote that down. That will
Okay.
be part of the discussions when we start to refine the RFP and the technical requirements. We'll get the the fire districts involved in those conversations and find out the best way to approach this. Traditionally, we haven't included these types of investments in our ATMS projects, but that's not, I don't think, for any reason other than it just wasn't needed in Broward County because they already had Opticom installed. So I think this is something that we can talk about and incorporate into the project as appropriate.
Thank you.
And Phase 1 is that particular US 1 from Savannah Club Road to Kings Highway, correct?
Yes, I can't read the roads, I'm sorry, but it's the whole red line, and it also goes east-west on State Road 70, and there's a little chunk on Edwards Road also.
Madam Chair, just in a discussion, so the point I want to make is I'm okay with this, and as we just voted, but it's important for us all to just know that from a fairness standpoint and future discussions, Phase 2 and Phase 3 may receive more challenges as it gets closer to the city of Port St. Lucie when we start talking about tactical moves.
I agree, and I will be speaking to Mr. Bremer about talking with staff on this issue.
Okay.
I have a question, Madam Chair. So what we just approved was Phase 1, and that's $3.2 million. Is that right?
We haven't voted.
Well, the concept, we're just,
not the expenditure.
they don't have the funding yet. They're going to be working on the funding.
Okay, thank you.
Point of order. We haven't fully voted. I called a comment question prior to taking the vote. So I said point of order.
We haven't voted yet.
Yes, I just asked a question prior to the vote. It was stated that we had already voted. We had not. So just a point of order.
Thank you.
Because you already called it.
Right. Yeah. Any more further questions? Can we move on? 9C,
We haven't,
2030.
Madam Chair, with all due respect, we haven't.
No.
Yes, we did.
No, ma'am. I called
No.
a question. I asked a question.
Simultaneously,
Comment.
I didn't hear him either.
There
It
was
the
not a
first and
final
second,
vote.
and he brought the question about the fire district.
Okay, all in favor? Because I know there was a first
Aye.
and second.
Aye.
Okay. Did you want to call it individually?
No, I just, were there any oppositions?
All opposed? 9C, 2013 Transportation Alternative Program.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The Transportation Alternatives Program, formerly known as the Transportation Enhancement Program, was authorized by the Moving Ahead for Progress in the 21st Century Act, MAP 21, that was signed into law by President Obama last year. Now, this is an annual grant process that's administered by the TPO that provides funding for non-capacity or alternative transportation improvements. Now, unfortunately, MAP 21 resulted in greatly reduced funding levels compared to the former Transportation Enhancement Program. Funding available for the 2013 grant cycle for the TPO is just over $360,000 that will be programmed by the Florida Department of Transportation in fiscal year 2016-17. Now, 2 project applications were submitted as part of this year's grant cycle, both from the City of Port St. Lucie. The subjects of both applications are from the TPO's Transportation Enhancement Priority Project list that you adopted last year. The first project is the Selvets Road Sidewalk Project, which proposes a 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk on the east side of Selvets Road, extending from Bayshore Boulevard to North Macedo Boulevard. The second project is the East Torino Parkway Sidewalk Project, which proposes a 5-foot concrete sidewalk on the east side of East Torino Parkway, extending from the Peacock Apartments to an existing sidewalk just north of the C-106 canal. $313,000 of transportation alternatives funding is requested for the Selvets Road sidewalk, while approximately $183,000 of funding is being requested for the East Torino Parkway sidewalk project. The City of Port St. Lucie has requested that the Selvets Road sidewalk project be prioritized over the East Torino Parkway sidewalk project. So based on this prioritization request, and that the Selvets Road sidewalk project more fully utilizes the available funding, and that both projects have relatively the same score, it is recommended the Selvets Road sidewalk project be prioritized above the East Torino Parkway sidewalk project.
Peter, I have a question for you. Last month when we met, we discussed the educational part of the sidewalk. Is that still on, or we're going to be doing that?
Madam Chair, I'm not sure I understand your question.
We were going to do the educational part of the sidewalks in lieu of not having money, and we were going to get the word out.
There is another program. We have the non-infrastructure grant program
Right.
that the TPO is currently administering through in cooperation with the school district. And one of those items that you'll see coming soon, we just wrapped filming of a school bus danger zone that identifies to students and the public where the dangerous zones around the school bus. The TPO will be continuing to administer that grant throughout the year. That's correct.
Okay. The motion on 9C?
Motion to approve with Selvets as priority.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Madam Chair, may I just ask a question, and it's in regards to this, but not, I support the vote here, but I'm just trying to get an understanding, because I'm like you, I'm getting confused, so if you can kind of guide me in regards to the sidewalk with the schools. That is a separate program than what this one is? Okay, when does that come back before the board for the priority, or how is that, those different sidewalks chosen?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hudson, the discussion that was conducted was in terms of in the recent issues with regards to the bicyclists and having, in addition to improvements in sidewalks, are there other programs, non-infrastructure related, that the TPO can administer. And the TPO currently is administering a non-infrastructure program from the Safe Routes to School grant, and that is to facilitate educationally through the school district proper ways to walk to school when there isn't a sidewalk.
All right, so it's not actually sidewalks itself?
No.
No, it's
Okay, that's what I was
educational
trying-
programs,
that's-
correct. And so will not be coming before you.
Okay. 9D, St. Lucie TPO redesignations.
Madam Chair, members of the board, at your last meeting, the board discussed a request from the Florida Department of Transportation to review its redesignation based on the 2010 census. And for the TPO, along with the Indian River and Martin MPOs, to review and evaluate whether having multiple MPOs representing the shared urbanized areas is warranted. Now, after significant discussion, the TPO board directed staff to draft a formal response that will confirm that no changes are proposed to the TPO boundaries or board apportionment, that the regional efforts that have been conducted since after the 2000 census will continue. The overall response will be of a neutral position, and the TPO will not expend significant resource supporting any other position, but the door is always open. Now, initial formal response to District 4 has been drafted, which attempts to be consistent with the board's direction. On April 4th, the Madam Chair and I met with District 4 Secretary Jim Wolf and the District Director of Transportation Development, Jerry O'Reilly. And at the meeting, the direction of the board from the last meeting was presented to them, and also along with the draft response. There's a very productive dialogue at this meeting, and they suggested a revision in the second paragraph of the letter, which was incorporated, and that revision is included there in the letter that's on the dais before you. It was a small change from the letter that was in your packet. But they also suggested the staff directors for 3 MPOs meet with FDOT as part of the process. Now, to summarize the initial response, the response states that the TPO does not oppose any evaluation of whether having multiple MPOs representing the 2 urbanized areas, those being the Port St. Lucie urbanized area and the Sebastian Vero Beach South Florida Ridge urbanized area, whether or not that is warranted. However, should the Martin MPO and Indian River MPOs oppose any evaluation, it would not appear to be cost efficient or sensible for the TPO to solely support such an evaluation. However, but on the other hand, because the TPO has been extraordinarily progressive in supporting the exploration of mergers in the past, it does not appear to be cost efficient or sensible, and could almost be considered hypocritical if the TPO were to expend significant resources on substantiating that more than one MPO for the urbanized areas is appropriate. So therefore, in the absence of any other support for any evaluation of optimizing the regional planning process, the TPO does not propose any changes to its boundaries or to its board apportionment or the regional efforts that have been conducted since the 2000 census. And here's where the door is kept open, because the TPO will remain amenable to meaningful discussion with DOT and the neighboring MPOs regarding the optimization of the regional planning process. So with that, because the initial formal response as drafted appears to be consistent with your direction from the last meeting, it is recommended that the TPO board approve the submittal of this initial formal response to the District 4.
Thank you, Peter.
Madam Chair, I do have a question. Do we know that Martin and Indian River MPOs are opposing? It just says here, should they?
Correct. Madam Chair, members of the board, Martin has indicated at their last meeting that they do oppose any such discussion. However, this was the recommendation of District 4. Wanted us to soften that and to word it in that manner so that they continue at least have some chance of continuing the process. So that's why it was softened to indicate that should they oppose that, then it wouldn't it be sensible for this board to support solely an exploration.
Well, I understood it. It sounds to me as if we're saying they're the bad guys, don't look at us. And I guess maybe that's the way we intended it to mean, but I'm just, because it says should they oppose, and I just wanted to know if they did. Thank you.
Yeah, Madam Chair, the letter that was in your packet was even stronger, saying that
yeah, it was. We toned it.
It was
It was.
To be honest with you.
It was softened at the request of District 4. But
Yeah.
again, the board
Well, I was just questioning the should. I didn't know whether they did or not. That was all I was questioning. I'm not questioning anything else about the way it's phrased.
Madam Chair.
Motion?
I had a question.
Oh, sorry.
It may come later, but it seems to me that 10 years ago when we visited this after the census, we also had the discussion at that point about the apportionment between the 2 counties. Is that going to come at a separate time, or are we still going to be recommending the same?
That was at the request of the previous governor, I think.
Well, I'm speaking in terms of the split of the funding.
No, I think that would keep... If I recall, if I may, Madam Chair, if I recall, part of that discussion was a recommendation that came down from the governor's office, the combining and the way that was going to be designated, and that's what...
Yeah, my memory's bad. I thought it came as a result of us having a joint meeting and agreeing based on the population, the split.
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the board, I believe what Mr. Drummond is referring to is the funding allocation of RxU funding.
Okay.
That is not a part of this discussion.
The money.
The money, yeah.
No, that is not a part of this letter or discussion this time. Certainly the board can choose to open up that discussion at a later date.
Okay, I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 10.
Madam Chair, members of the board, the 2035 Regional Long-Range Transportation Plan adopted by you in February of 2011 includes the first multimodal cost feasible plan. Goals, objectives, and policies pertaining to multimodal planning, and for the first time, performance measures. The performance measures developed for the long-range plan consist of regional indicators and benchmarks for measuring implementation of the long-range plan goals, objectives, and policies. Now, the performance measures will be implemented and monitored on an annual basis, and this past year now allows for the first year-to-year or annual monitoring of the progress of the long-range plan. A number of the indicators reflected improvements over the past year. That include an increase in the transportation disadvantage ridership, the alternative transportation mode usage, along with park and ride lot space is significantly improved, along with some new development at the airport. And also, on the next page, you see an increase in the bus fixed route revenue miles, along with the number of miles of bicycle and pedestrian facilities that were constructed in the area, along with the locally funded transportation projects built consistent with the long-range plan. Now, overall, 12 of the indicators indicated improvements, while only 5 indicated declines, and 4 were unchanged. Now, because there are more than 2-to-1 improvements over declines, the implementation of the long-range plan appears to be a success so far. And with that, we look forward to the board's comments.
Any comments?
Madam Chair, the only comment is I'm happy to see that we have some indicators and benchmarking available to us now, so we can very easily at a glance see what's going on and whether we're happy with progress.
Anything else? Seeing none. Item 11, FDOT comments. Thank you. Recommendations, comments by members?
Madam Chair, I just want to publicly thank DOT for their help and their willingness to work with the county in regard.
You're on 13.
Oh, I'm
You have
sorry.
TPO staff.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
No, she's
No.
She's
We're on.
Comments by members.
Okay. Just express my thanks to DOT in regards to the safety measures that they've taken on there at the corner of Midway and Okeechobee Road at that intersection. We talked about it briefly, and they jumped on it immediately. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Madam Chair, I don't know if this is the time, so tell me if it isn't, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the City of Fort Pierce approving the impact fees for designing a rail station in the City of Fort Pierce. We did that Monday night. We've been aggressively seeking attention from several different rail projects, including All Aboard Florida and Amtrak and Tri-Rail. And we have the facility that is a good possibility for designing a rail station, and I wanted to share that with this committee. I don't know if you were going to talk about it. If I've stolen your thunder, I'm sorry, but at any rate, if this is the time to share that, I'd like to share that with you.
Thank you.
Is it an additional impact fee, or is it an impact fee?
We're using past impact fees that we've collected for a design. We want to be ready. When the train comes, we want to be on board.
There you go. Nicely put.
Madam, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Madam Chair, if I may, which is very positive. I was actually at a transportation summit in Tallahassee, and there was a Florida U.S. representative there, and he told me that with a stop, with a transportation stop in place, we can look at the possibility of having a phase 2 stop in St. Lucie County. So that's very positive, and that's the rail coming from Orlando to Miami.
Yeah, that's
so
All Aboard Florida.
All Aboard Florida.
Yes.
So I'm confirming what you said, and also the authorities and all the transportation authorities there recognize what we're doing and recognize what's going on in St. Lucie County relative to that.
Yeah,
so I just want everybody
it
to know
will
that.
serve the Treasure Coast region if this happens for us, so it benefits all of us.
Yes, it does.
And if I may, Madam Chair, we have been working on that for 10 years, at least, right?
12,
Or longer
yeah,
than that?
12.
So, we got right there at one point. Just the money was even allocated in federal budget, and then it got turned back. And so we've been there really, really close. before, and every time we get turned back, we still proceed by trying to get everything we need in place on that checklist to make sure that whenever the money comes through, we're ready. So I'm very pleased.
Good, thank you. Good.
Madam Chair, did everyone else receive the invitation that All Aboard is actually doing a public
Yes,
meeting?
May 8th.
May 8th.
Mhm. Yes, yeah. In Fort Pierce, and they weren't in Fort Pierce before, so we
They are
feel
now.
that's a very positive sign.
Good.
Great.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the field, take a look at the screen. We have the date and time and location of that public session there for All Aboard Florida there in the Fort Pierce. And Fort Pierce is the only location other than where they're planning stations to have such a hearing. And the importance of note is Fort Pierce, or there's no other stations being planned except in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, and then terminating in Orlando. So to the extent that we can align ourselves or somehow encourage by demonstrating our disappointment by not having a station along the Treasure Coast, because they are anticipating 15 trains a day to be going back and forth. So you would think perhaps we could have one train stop there in Fort Pierce.
One northbound, one southbound.
So to the extent we talked about earlier today about the equitable benefits that would be from 15 trains coming across, rumbling through the area, would there be equitable benefit that this area would receive to minimize and mitigate the impacts from 15 trains rumbling through the area? And I think at least 1 or 2 trains stopping here can mitigate that impact. So with your support, I would like to discuss with All Aboard Florida and other individuals the importance of a station or one of the trains stopping here in order to mitigate 15 trains rumbling through the area.
Did you say 15 trains?
Madam Chair, could I just take a comment? I think your idea is wonderful, but I would ask you to go one step further. Why don't you invite them to actually do a site visit? Sometimes seeing it is much more helpful and convincing.
And perhaps I can invite them to the next board meeting as well.
No, I'm talking a site visit for All Aboard Florida when they're coming through to do that. Maybe earlier that day, maybe in conjunction with the mayor, you might want to invite them to do a site visit.
They are coming the day before.
The day before for that, good.
To the
good.
City Hall, where
Good.
they will see that site.
Very good.
Yes.
And Madam Chair, if I may, will we be able to talk about this in Tallahassee next week?
Sure, absolutely.
I think we will.
Appreciate being able to do that.
We would appreciate it.
Any other discussions? Next, TPO staff comments.
No, Madam Chair, just that our next meeting is on Wednesday, June 5th at 2 p.m., and it's going to be another exciting meeting because before you will be the Transportation Improvement Program, as well as the beginning of the list of priority projects from which the DOT will program their upcoming work programs. So, very important, very exciting meeting. I hope all can attend.
If I may, Madam Mayor, there's the MPOAC meetings in Tallahassee next week, and one of the issues on there is a report from the Transportation for the Disadvantaged. We have been working for years to not let them sweep the accounts anymore. My understanding is that the state has realized they might have a little extra money, not that we'll ever get any money back, but maybe that they'll leave the fund alone and let us have access to the funds that as it goes in as it's supposed to be designated, and that will be a request next week.
Any further questions, comments? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Meeting's on Thursday. I was...